What's up, everybody? Welcome back inside the Horseshoe for the Monday after Ohio State 56, Indiana 14. You know the crew by now. That's the 40-year vet Tim May. That's Andy Backstrom. I'm Spencer Holbrook. Fellas, let's talk about this game on a 37-degree, partly sunny, but kind of cold Monday morning. The Monday after Ohio State 56, Indiana 14. Tim, first thoughts on the rewatch, Tim?
Well, first thought is they didn't turn the heat on in here. So it's literally the same temperature as when we stood here, what was that, 48 hours ago, or 40 hours ago.
Yep.
So I've got that bone to pick with my buddy Larry. First thought is Ohio State hammered Indiana.
Yes.
Yeah, they left the first string in for that fourth quarter to get Cam Babb a touchdown. You got to believe that was part and parcel to it. Brian Day said they put the first string back in there because Indiana had just scored. Well, Indiana just scored because Ohio State muffed it, second straight punt. Poor Reese Stocksdale. I hope he gets over that.
Yeah.
Whether we'll see him again this season in that kind of role, I doubt it. You know, he had a tough two punch there, but what a great young man he is. And, of course, he's Marvin Harrison Jr.'s best friend. And, Marvin Harrison Jr. was the guy that gave him some a little bit of we're going to call it some encouragement. He's coming off the field, and he kept going, no, it's mine. So I did watch the replay. But what stood out was, for the most part, how Ohio State's offensive line and defensive line carried the day. I mean, we're in charge about 95% of the time. There were some times, and we'll get to that in a minute, but that is big at this moment in a season. But I keep telling everybody that was against Indiana, one of the worst teams in the country. You think it's the worst, I think, FBS team in the country.
No, worst Power 5.
Worst Power 5, excuse me. Worst Power 5 team in the country, which makes him in the running for one of the worst FBS teams in the country. So that's my take on that, is Ohio State handled business like it should have.
Andy?
Yeah, it's kind of like when you play an FCS team, you're supposed to win by a ton, and if you do, it's not good on you. It's, well, you should have done that. So
right.
Even though Ohio State played pretty well, and we talked about the offensive line playing a lot better and having a little bit of a statement game, all 5 of those starting offensive linemen had PFF offensive grades over 70. But again, people will say, well, it's against Indiana. So it's one of those things where they'll have to prove it and prove it and prove it again.
Yeah.
But overall, they played pretty well. And the short yardage situation is something that Ryan Day is still frustrated about. But in watching it back again, there was really only a couple times where they didn't convert on traditional running situations. The one we were talking about was that 4th and 1, actually, down in the red zone where Dallin Hayden couldn't get the first down there. That's probably the one he's thinking about that sticks out, but in reality they weren't that bad. Like Mayan Williams had 2 conversions on 3rd down before he got hurt.
Yeah, one went to the house.
That was a 3rd and 1. He took 48 yards to the end zone. So overall, not as bad as it sounded like in those short yardage situations. I just think a few that stuck out to me.
Yeah, and the Mitch Rossi inside handoff out of that broken eye was a short yardage play, which I know I'm thinking that's the one that really bothered Ryan Day, because
Tim?
They got nothing. I mean, there was so much penetration on that play, it was crazy.
That play was blocked play side. I drew up a little diagram, put it on the Lettermen Row message board on the rewatch. I posted a lot of things on there that I noticed the second time watching through. That play was blocked well play side. The left side of the line moved guys, and there was a hole for Mitch Rossi. And when he was coming
if he darting
across, that was on the 2 tight ends on the right side of the offensive line who just completely got blown up by former Ohio State commit and true freshman Indiana defender Dasan McCullough. I mean, backside.
The moment.
Backside, do your job. Yep. And you convert a first down there. Mitch Rossi's probably still running because there was a crease.
What? You make a good point there, though. 4th and 1 against Florida in the national championship game back in 2006 season.
Woo, time machine.
Guy comes backside. Alex Boone basically didn't touch him or barely touched him. He tackles Beanie Wells. If Beanie Wells had gotten to the hole, he might have run 10 yards before anybody hit him. But you've always got to take care of the front. You know what I mean? No matter what. I mean, you're just pointing out, it's a true team game up there.
Yep.
This can be well blocked, but you still got to get there.
Yep, so that's the backside issue. My big issue right now with the short yardage situation is, so I've bounced around on who the culprit is, what the problem is. Here's where I've landed. Ohio State averages 10 yards of play against Indiana out of whatever it's doing spread-wise. 3rd and 1, it brings in the heavies, goes completely flip of its identity, and tries to get a yard. Well, if you're averaging 10 yards of play on every other play except for the one you go heavy on, the hell are you going heavy for? because you can get if you can get 9-10 yards of play.
Prove a point.
Yeah.
It's to prove a point. I understand that.
To move the earth.
But you don't have to prove a point if the point doesn't need proven. You're proving that you can get 9-10 yards of play on every other play. So I don't know.
Is Muhammad going to go to the mountain, or the mountain going to come to Muhammad?
I don't know if the heavy.
I'm just trying to throw all my cliches in there.
I can hear that. I don't know if the heavies are the solution to getting those short yardage situations. They
Wait,
can
can I
be.
interrupt?
They can be, but they don't have to be.
Can I interrupt real quick? I agree with you 100%. I mean, put 5 guys down in there and array your wide receivers, and with a running back. Now defense, what are you going to do? Because this is one of the more accurate quarterbacks I've ever seen in history, who can throw a slant on the numbers about as well as I've seen in history. You can have the whatever. I mean, there are all kinds of options open to you. Why try to hit that nail? You know, when you don't necessarily have to hit that nail. I'm with you 100%. But there is something to, as Ryan Day said, and we were all talking about after the Michigan game a year ago. There's something about just showing you're the toughest guy on the block. Michigan did that last year. In the second half of that game, Michigan was the toughest team in the stadium. And that's stuck in this team's cross, definitely stuck in Ryan Day's cross, why he made all these changes, you know. And you understand why he's doing it. But, boy, when there's a season on the line, get it the best way you can get it, right? I mean, I think that's the point you're making.
Yeah, you know, if Tennessee had a 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, Heupel's not going to bring out 3 tight ends and 6 offensive linemen and try to mash it down somebody's throat. He's going to do what he does best, offense.
That guy.
So, you know, and I'm not saying that Josh Heupel is amazing. It's just one example. I'm hesitant to believe that Ohio State should only go heavy in 3rd and 4th and 1. I don't know where you land on this, Andy, but it kind of stuck out to me that you don't always have to be in, you know, 11 guys up tight to get a 3rd and 4th and 1.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we looked at the way that Ohio State spreads teams out. There was one play against Indiana where they lined up Julian Fleming wide outside. We talked about this play. First, we saw him line out there. What is he doing out there? Of course, comes in on a slant. CJ Stroud hits him perfectly in stride, goes for like 12 yards.
Yeah.
And that's a play there, yeah. If you line up on 3rd and 1, maybe you stretch them out instead of trying to line up in a heavy. But I do think kind of what Tim's saying, like, it's to prove a point. And Ryan Day admitted that it's some stubbornness. He was asked about it. He's like, yeah, I want to prove a point. And I think that part of that is going the whole season preparing for Michigan a little bit at a time and wanting to be prepared for that game, regardless of what the weather is, regardless of how tough you have to be to win, to be able to convert in those situations. So maybe it's a little bit less about how do we convert all of our 3rd downs against Indiana, and more so about how do we prepare for situations like that against Michigan. So I think that's partly what it is, and part of it's stubbornness. But I agree with you that you could have more variety, because if you do, then you're probably going to be more successful when you do go to the heavies.
Yeah. And if you jump into that box with everybody against Michigan, you know, you're kind of playing, you're kind of letting Michigan dictate, you know, for example,
Yes.
what you're all about,
Yep.
as opposed to you dictating what you're all about. I mean, this team is all about, man, just having the most wide open passing offense you've ever seen. That's what this team is all about. And running the ball, spreading the field, and running the ball between those creases.
Yep.
You know, and I don't know if it had to bother. Of course it did. It bothered Ryan Day to have so many aspersions cast his team's way at the end of the year last year. He, like I said, he made all these wholesale changes, especially in the coaching staff, to get that fixed. But really, you're getting it fixed for maybe 2 games a year, 3 games a year. Yeah, there are going to be moments when you got to line up and get 1 yard.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean you got to line up and get 1 yard like Michigan does, or like Georgia does, or like Alabama does. You can line up and get it the way you do it. And I'm not preaching him at all, because I thought a lot of this was needed. I thought that team did like a little bit of a crispness. That's hard for me to say. Crispness in real physical situations last year. Anybody could see that.
Yep.
But now it's all about getting the W. And we'll see where it goes. I mean, where you want to prove it, and the reason he got upset is, you know, golly, this is Indiana. We should be able to run almost anything against this defense, which is really poor, as you said.
Yep.
One of the worst in Power 5, teams in Power 5. And a couple times, or one time in particular, they didn't get it done. And, of course, that stuck with him, because that was a point of emphasis all week.
Yep.
After coming out of that Northwestern game.
If you're keeping track at home, folks, we've mentioned Indiana just 3 times. We've mentioned Michigan 5 times, and we have not said the word Maryland yet.
Maryland.
We're inching closer toward a showdown for the ages, as the kids would say, here in the Horseshoe here in a couple weeks. But first, Ohio State's got to go to Maryland. Not a lot defensively to break down. Maybe a little bit of quarterback run issues, but I think that was just more on the defensive line, getting after the Indiana quarterbacks and them breaking a little loose. I don't think that's a concern. I was wondering where you guys fell on that on the rewatch. I think it's a non-issue right now, but with Talia Tagovailoa and J.J. McCarthy on the schedule, it might become an issue if the Buckeyes can't keep contained. I think that's something worth noting right now.
Yeah. I don't know where to stand on that because, number one, you got to cover. Number two, I think Jim Knowles is pretty smart. I think he sees some lessons that have been learned, especially against the young man from Toledo, whose name I always Daquan Finn.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that guy's as good a running quarterback as I've seen this year, except maybe Justin Fields.
Yeah.
But you gotta figure the Detroit Lions harped on Justin Fields being able to run too, and he went to the house.
Yeah,
that was amazing. Still didn't win the game, but I digress. That would be a weapon that Michigan would use to keep these drives, these nitpicking drives alive that they like to run, and keep maintaining a ball control in that game. They definitely got to have a handle on that. This week, I don't think is that kind of challenge.
No.
Talia, whoever ends up playing quarterback for Maryland, Talia Tagovailoa, whoever ends up playing quarterback for Maryland eventually, I don't think they're that kind of threat. But I didn't think the quarterback got away too much on Saturday, to be honest with you. I mean, he wanted to run. He got away a couple of times, but he also got bushwhacked a couple of times, and that kind of took a little bit of the edge off of his running. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, I think it was just a little bit of that zone read game, Andy.
Yeah, and I think one thing you have to consider, too, is how much do they think they were going to see of Dexter Williams?
Yeah.
Connor Bazelak was the starter.
Yeah.
He's taken the bulk of snaps this year. Yeah, he missed the previous week with an injury, but he was back and he was healthy enough to start. So I don't think any of us expected him to get pulled after his second series. I mean, things weren't going well. 6 plays, 10 total yards, 2 3-and-outs. And I don't know if Ryan Day and Jim Knowles and the rest of the staff knew that they were going to be getting Dexter Williams in that capacity. So maybe you don't prepare as much for it, but I think you should always be prepared for the quarterback run. I just don't think that maybe it was emphasized as much as it was.
Have you ever seen the worst display of passing the ball?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've seen some worse, but that was right up there of just standing and just throwing it. And who cares where it, I mean, that was hard to watch. I'm talking about from an Indiana standpoint.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Yeah, between Iowa and Indiana, we've seen our fair share of terrible passing.
Oh, wow.
This year. Yeah, Andy, I agree with you. And also, one thing that I'm starting to consider is the fact that Jim Knowles has been okay with giving up a little bit of quarterback run when he's up 35 or when he's up 28, as long as he's not showing what he's going to do in bigger situations. You saw it against Toledo. Daquan Finn got loose a little bit. They were spying him, but I don't think they were doing anything out of the ordinary defensively to show how they're going to defend a good quarterback on the run in the running game because they were up so much. The same can be said, against Indiana here on Saturday. They stayed basically in the base defense, minus a little bit of Jack Sawyer. Put a little bit of Jack Sawyer in there on the blitzes, blitzed Lathan Ransom a little bit just to show that. Maybe put that on film for teams to consider here in the future. But a lot of it was base stuff. And so maybe I'm overreacting a little bit. I just thought that the read option was an interesting little layer that Ohio State might need to make sure is shored up. But overall, I thought this was probably the best game Ohio State's played in totality since the Michigan State game, Tim.
Yeah, he brought Jack Sawyer. I mean, I think it was his second sack where they ran a little gambit where defensive tackle. I'm trying to remember the defensive tackle.
Teron Vincent.
Yeah, basically flashed across the guard into the tackle area, and Sawyer just kind of looped in. It was like one of the great blocking plays you're going to see offensively. Just looped in and had a straight shot at the quarterback. I mean, Jack Sawyer stepped it up a notch on Saturday without a doubt. Like I say, I'm couching it with who they were going against. That was a team very much in disarray on its offensive front. You see why the offensive line coach was fired mid-season. It was just like a hodgepodge of stuff going on from their offensive front. I'm talking about Indiana's, but Ohio State definitely took advantage of that. And I think the main thing you got out of that was some guys finally getting their oats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jack Sawyer finally got the feet at the trough, so to speak. I mean, we've been expecting this all year, but it's hard for if one guy's having a good game for another guy to have a good game because the defense is off the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you go on to the next deal. JT Tuimoloau, I'm getting my names mixed up there. JT Tuimoloau, I think, looked pretty good on Saturday as much as he played and stuff. And then Teron Vincent continued his tour. I think Teron Vincent is having a second half of probably his final season at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Right? I think he's having a tremendous tour so far. And we'll see if he can step that up, because if he does, man, it changes everything. It changes everything for that defense.
Andy, it's interesting because Teron Vincent, actually a guy that I came into this show wanting to talk about. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. Andy, he has he has a poor PFF grade. I think it's 60. I think he's been 2 games in the 30s. And I think that's because sometimes I love PFF and sometimes I hate it, because Teron Vincent takes on more double teams than maybe any player in the country right now, just because of the way this defense runs. He's attacking guard tackle, center guard a lot.
Yep.
And eating those up and making plays for other guys. He deserves a lot of credit here, but the numbers don't really show that right now.
Yeah, and I think there's obviously confidence in him because, the staff has been rolling with him playing consistently 50 or more snaps.
Yeah.
Michael Hall's snaps have been going down, and I know he's been dealing with a bit of an injury too, so I think that's part of it. But the rest of that defensive line is rotated pretty heavily, but Teron Vincent's kind of an anchor in there right now, and I think part of that is because he draws those double teams. Jack Sawyer said that they thank him profusely for that. And I think that's very real, and that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. And when you're playing interior defensive line, often most of what you do doesn't show up in the stat sheet. So the numbers for defensive tackles are hard to read a lot of the time anyway. I think that the number of snaps he's been playing consistently of late shows just how well he's playing and how much confidence the Ohio State staff has in him.
It's very apparent too, Tim, that they kind of pared the rotation down a little bit.
Yeah.
I saw Ty Hamilton in there more.
I like Ty Hamilton.
I think he's playing really well.
Game.
You saw more JT Tuimoloau, Zach Harrison, Jack Sawyer than you did of Tyler Friday, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, even the guy that was getting some snaps earlier in the year, Caden Curry. You're starting to see that rotation pared down a little bit, and I think that's on purpose. After a lot of people asked Ryan Day about it this week.
Yeah, but we also don't know. They keep saying things so tight from an injury standpoint.
Oh yeah,
or
for
a
sure.
Banged up standpoint.
Yep.
We also, some of those guys, I'm feeling, have been dealing with some things that we're not being made privy to.
So, some maladies, if you will.
Some maladies, that's the word I use.
Yeah. So, okay. Enough
by the way, bring up one more name. Cam Brown had a tremendous game on Saturday.
Yes.
Now, they weren't facing the Ohio State wide receiver core.
You don't say.
Let's put that on paper, or let's put that out in the airwaves, or wherever this is, digital. But he had a tremendous game on Saturday, with one exception of one play. And that one play, he was there. He just didn't quite fight up through the ball, like you have to against these big tight ends. Y'all kept saying, and rightly so, he got mossed sort of on that play, but he was there and made a great effort to break up that play. That guy made a tremendous catch.
Guy was just 6 inches taller than him, took it out of his hands.
And it's funny, not funny, haha, it's funny, that's one of their 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean? And their other touchdown, after Reese Stocksdale muffed his second punt down here, it's interesting because Indiana ran a play that I keep expecting Ohio State to run. And I'm trying to remember whether they lined up specifically in that bunch formation out wide, or if a guy came from the inside out on it. But anyway, the Ohio State safety on that side, now, I'm not going to name a name because it was hard for me to get the number off of watching the video again. They just jumped. They jumped the wide screen. And all the guys, the 3 guys, the one guy stood back for the wide screen. The other 2 guys ran routes, and the guy ran the inside little basically quick post cut. Nobody picked up because the guy that was supposed to would have been there for him had jumped the wide screen. I keep waiting for Ohio State to run that exact same play, meaning you take that bunch and explode it like a hand grenade, and guys go everywhere, and the guy's wide open. I think that's coming. I think anybody who scouts Ohio State maybe think that's coming, but you still got to jump the widescreen if you think it's happening. But that was a great example of where this Ohio State offense can go. It's just that Indiana ran it and got their second touchdown. Well executed play. So I guarantee that sticks in Jim Knowles' craw a little bit as he watched the video.
So we've got Cameron Brown as a mention on this. I wrote about Lathan Ransom being a Thorpe Award threat.
Did we talk about him yet?
Not yet, but we've got plenty of week to talk about him building up. Kind of raved about him on LettermenRow.com. Go check that out right now. But we can't get past this Indiana game without talking about Cameron Babb. I was asked about him on the radio this morning. He's been the talk of the town for the last 2 days. To see what he's gone through the last few years, Tim, I put it in perspective, Tim. He's been rehabbing longer than I've been on the beat.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's not about me at all. But it just gave me a little perspective of,
You're so humble. Go ahead.
It gave me a little perspective, Tim, of like, okay, here's how long I've been here. He's been rehabbing for longer than that. So it just allowed,
except for like 3 months a year.
Yeah, it just allowed me to kind of take a step back and realize what he's been through. Andy, you did a good job, not being around Cameron Babb a lot, but then being able to tell his story. What did you think seeing Cameron Babb and the celebration that Ohio State gave him after his touchdown?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take long to be around him to kind of get an idea of what kind of person he is and how selfless he is. And he talked about his faith extensively and how much this meant to him to be able to praise God. And I think that was all a beautiful moment. And you could just see his teammates. That celebration went well into that Indiana drive.
Yeah.
And they did not care about the 15-yard penalty, and they should not care at all about that 15-yard penalty because
kind of a stupid. There's times to throw the flag and times not
I thought
to.
about that too. It was like,
yeah,
it wasn't really excessive. It
decorum.
It was.
They got to keep their decorum.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a moment they needed to celebrate, and I think it was well deserved and long awaited. But I think hey, that was a pretty good route too. We kind of undersell that was a good play.
And the plant leg was the one with the big, the big brace on it. I mean, you're exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, he was asked afterwards, like, where do you go from here? I don't know how many snaps he's going to play after this. He might not get another catch in his career, but even if he doesn't, that's a moment, and they all talked about this, it's a moment that you're going to always remember.
Yeah, and I got goosebumps as you were just bringing it up because, I mean, you know how much this guy has worked, and then when he and CJ were talking about it after the game, post game, there was a lot. Half of their, maybe 3/4 of what they were talking about was just their faith in the Lord, faith in Jesus Christ. And for some people, that's, that goes in one ear and out the other. For some people, it really strikes home and stuff. But what you got to remember about a lot of athletes who have a big faith component is there are dark moments. There are dark moments that these guys have, especially guys who are dealing with injury like Cam Babb. I've never been around a situation of a player who kept getting knocked down and kept getting up like this guy has. And you got to have, when you're sitting there all by yourself with like a machine, stimulating your leg to grow back stronger, after a doctor's put it back together again for the 4th time, your knee, you got to have something to lean on other than just, I want to play again. I mean, and you understand where he's going with that.
Yep.
And some people take umbrage with that. But I totally understand that, and to have two buddies standing there who feel exactly the same way about it, C.J. Stroud and Cam Babb and the other guys. Every player came out of that tunnel on Saturday and took a knee down there, an extended knee, praying to whatever it is they believe, and then came on and started the game. And this is a brutal game. It is, and there are so few high moments for so many players that when you see a guy just have that moment, it touches you, man.
One thing that I will remember about that moment is after the press conference with Cameron Babb and CJ Stroud, that's a friend of the show, Clay Hall from ABC6, was talking to Cameron Babb, and CJ Stroud was already done with his media stuff, and instead of going back down to the locker room, CJ Stroud stood there with Cameron Babb, didn't say a word, didn't answer any questions, and just allowed Cameron Babb to have that moment on TV.
I stood there and watched that. I mean, it was striking.
I know that this is more about Cameron Babb than it is CJ Stroud, but that kind of tells you those two in particular, that's who they are. Like, it's not, CJ, thanks God before every press conference, before every time he talks to us, after every pass that he throws even. And that's not an act. That's not a a show. It's real.
And it doesn't mean you can't have an edge about you either.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're no patsy.
So I just think it was a really cool moment. And for the people who stuck around in the Horseshoe to watch that butt kicking and then to get rewarded almost by being able to be in that moment with Cam Babb, I just thought it was awesome. And I think that'll be the moment of the year, whether this team hoists the CFP trophy or not. I just think that's something that people will remember for a really long time, especially Cameron Babb, who has fought through so much. I thought we needed to touch on that before we get on to Maryland.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And it'll be, if they win the national championship, it'll be one of the moments of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, let's don't get too far over the top here. But you're exactly right. And because everybody there has been, we talked about this on Saturday. Everybody there, they've elected Cameron Babb a captain, and whether he was going to play, exactly, and whether he was going to play or not was totally up in the air. But it just shows you what kind of an influence he has.
Yeah.
And that's good to have on your football team. That's all I got to say about that.
So 4 days from now, we'll head to Maryland. In between there, we've got plenty of coverage at lettermenrow.com, fellas.
First take on Maryland?
First take on Maryland.
They got beat 30-0 on Saturday by Penn State.
Andy, this is an interesting matchup. Michigan obviously welcomes Illinois into the Big House this week for their look-ahead spot. Ohio State's got to go on the road, to College Park for their look-ahead spot. Is this a opportunity or a chance for Ohio State to slip up? How are you feeling on this fine Monday morning?
I don't think it's a trap game at all. And I think Maryland, if you look early in the season and you're like, okay, maybe that game down in College Park is going to be a little bit interesting. But if you've watched it all of Maryland the last couple of weeks, I think that Northwestern played them close. Tim just said Penn State beat them 30-0. I know they'll be at home, but it's not looking like the same Maryland team we saw at the start of the year that was, sniffing around the AP poll.
Yeah, neither one of these trap games we were looking at 3 weeks ago. Ohio State at Maryland, which is obviously everybody remembers that 2018 game over there. It was crazy.
The last time Ohio State played over there.
Exactly. And then Michigan, Illinois looked a hell of a lot like a better game a couple of weeks ago than it does now.
Yep.
And but you still got to take care of it, man. Ohio State's on the road. When they've had their stumbles, if they've been on the road, we all know that. Heck, it was a week and a half ago at Northwestern. You never know what the weather's going to kick in, what's going to be there. But, I agree with Andy. I think Ohio State takes care of business in this game. Hopefully, they take care of their starters, too, in this game, if, in fact, they can take care of some business. Because, you're up 40 points on Saturday, and you do want to get Cam Babb that touchdown. But you got your starters. You got a Heisman Trophy front runner in the game, middle of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn late in a game like that. And I think everybody recognizes that. But C.J. Stroud did get his. Let's put it that way. 5 touchdown passes, almost 300 yards passing.
So that's the balance here is you need to go over there and win. If you win by 1, no one cares. If you win by 50, no one cares.
I don't know if you win by 1, no one cares.
People care.
Listen, this is
care going on.
I guess I can't make a point then. The point I'm trying to make is...
your point, but the fact that nobody's going to care is crazy. We're going to be asking all kinds of questions.
The point I'm just trying to make is if you win, it doesn't matter because you're trying to win to get to Michigan. Just win and keep your starters healthy. If you come back... I
understood the point you were making.
If you land back at John Glenn International Airport with a 1-point win and all your starters healthy, people are going to still talk about the Michigan game. No one's going to talk about the Maryland game.
Yeah, but how are they going to be talking about that Michigan game after you just won by 1 at Maryland, a team that got beat 30-0 the week before at Penn State?
Guess I'll just shut up then.
Well, exactly. I mean, we're not going to be sitting there going, "Oh, all is well."
I don't think that's not the point I'm making, Tim. The point I'm making is go over to Maryland, get a win, and keep your starters healthy, and then roll the helmets out here on the field in the Horseshoe. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, here's the point you should make. And you and I, we go at each other all the time.
Absolutely.
The point you should have made is if they go over to Maryland and win by 1, but then they come back here and beat Michigan, no one's going to care about that Maryland game.
I think that was kind of implied. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, but okay.
You don't have to agree. That's fine.
But that's 2 weeks from now when we'll be going, who cares about Maryland?
Yeah.
But a week from now, if they win by 1 at Maryland, we're all going to be asking questions. I'm telling you. Even Andy.
Okay, here. Fine. Okay, stop. We're going to cut this. if they win by 14 and come back home with their starters healthy, no one's going to give
I agree
a
100%.
four-letter word what they did at Maryland. You got to beat Michigan. Is it everybody fair? Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. So
Yeah, I might have some questions.
Maryland, good passing game, bad defense. Not really much else to say. Are you as intrigued as I am to see about this Ohio State running game the week before Michigan?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we're all probably going to watch. Is just how well can they run, and also I want to see who's running the ball for them.
Yeah.
I want to see, is Travion Henderson healthy, or is he going to miss his third straight game? I want to see how many carries does Dallin Hayden get. Do they trust him more after this past week's performance where he went over 100 yards and had 19 carries? Is Maya Williams healthy enough to go? How serious is that injury? These are all questions that need to be answered, and I don't know how many answers we'll get at Maryland because a few of those guys could be late scratches, and we might not exactly know what the situation is.
I was going to say, I want to ask you guys a question. What do you Mayan Williams clearly would be better served, if he's got a sprained ankle, which I'm understanding that might be the case, would be better served probably not playing this week. Travion Henderson's got that toe sprain, foot sprain he's been dealing with forever. Might be better served. Do you think the running back rotation could be Dallin Hayden, Xavier Johnson, who have we even said his name today? Who had a tremendous game on Saturday? Xavier Johnson and Chip Trainum. Do you think that could be their three backs? Their pair and a spare?
I absolutely believe that could be the three backs, and I don't think Ohio State would have an issue getting over Maryland with that. Xavier Johnson runs harder than anyone on this roster. I'm okay.
Wait, harder than Mayan Williams?
I'm talking about relative to his, because you saw that run. Like, nobody was stopping Xavier Johnson out there. That was a hard run, and he looked like Barry Sanders.
Oh my God.
It was crazy. So, he's the hardest runner relative to the talent level or the acumen on this roster. I could see him getting 10, 15 carries. Dallin Hayden, 10, 15 carries. Get Chip Trainum a few carries in case emergency roll, break glass.
If Trainum's available also.
And you got it. And you have to trot him out there against Michigan, and then roll the dice with your best two running backs on the field against Michigan. Mayan Williams is better served, I think, over in the training room at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on Saturday afternoon than he is, getting 5 carries and maybe taking some warm-up snaps.
I agree 100%. That's why I brought it up.
In College Park. So, Andy, great point. I am super intrigued to see who runs the ball this week. I think the entire city of Columbus is waiting to see who runs the ball this week. And maybe they're just waiting on the Lettermen Row availability report at 9 a.m. on Saturday.
Yeah, and also Emeka Egbuka, I think we're all curious about, if he has any long-term or...
I don't mean to cut you off. He did return a punt after that hit, though.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not sure what the deal is there, if his time was done, or if, there is something there. But he did return a punt after that hit.
Yeah, but I'm just going on what I was hearing, after the game. I'm not going on, that kind of situation, because we've seen guys come back into games and whatever. But the bottom line is this is a game. This is where I agree with you on one thing. You want to win by more than one, but this is a game you just want to win.
Yep.
I agree with that. You
That's
want
the
to turn
point I
that
was
Maryland
making.
M upside down, make it a W, and move on. And that's exactly their intent this week. But I still think they can get some big things done. I think defensively, they, as John Cooper used to say, they scratch where Maryland itches on offense. I'm really interested to see how this defensive front attacks Maryland, because I think it's there for the getting, so to speak.
We will be there to watch Ohio State try to get it, I guess, against Maryland. Full coverage of that at LettermenRow.com all week, and then full coverage leading into the game next week, Thanksgiving weekend. That's the 40-year vet Tim May. That's Andy Backstrom. Fellas, I am cold. I'm ready to be back inside, maybe get some coffee in me. So, for Andy, for Tim, I'm Spencer. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Head to the Letterman Lounge message board and check out LettermenRow.com. $10 until next August. New deal on the table, Tim.
That's still a hell of a deal.
I agree.
That's $1
That's
a month?
Yeah, that's coverage of the game. That's coverage of Big Ten Championship, College Football Playoff possibly, National Signing Day, spring practice, all the way through, we get into Big Ten Media Days, and then it's August 31st, and so you get full training camp experience with Lettermen Row, and you get the Letterman Lounge message board. So $10 for all of that. That's a hell of a deal. Again, Tim, Andy, Spencer, Monday after Ohio State 56, Indiana 14. We'll see you guys in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on Tuesday for a Ryan Day press conference and the practice report.